If you are planning on getting a new MacBook, even with the M2 chip, don't do it now. Hold on. Apple is currently working on new Macs that are very likely to be better than the ones in stores right now. Plus, there is another device to be released very soon that could easily replace MacBooks with Apple Silicon. There is a lot of deets to go over, so let's get into it. Who made the transition from 64-bit processors to the ARM? Apple. What was the best-selling MacBook of all time? M1 Air. So who will be the first in terms of innovation in processor development? Again, Apple. Yes guys, the rumors are true and TSMC will indeed start manufacturing 3nm chips for Apple as early as September of this year. And most interestingly, the technical progress has been really intense since Intel intended to share the first standing with Apple. But at the last moment, they abandoned the idea due to delays in production of their new chips. I don't work at Intel, so I can only guess whether this was done on purpose to distract Apple or not, but the fact still stands. Chips based on the 3nm process technology from Intel will only be released not sooner than 2024, but will new laptops with M2 Pro and M2 Max chips be presented in September of this year? There are two opinions on this. I personally stick to the fact that professional MacBooks will not be released in September. There are a number of reasons for this, but there are also those who believe that the M2 Pro and Max will still be on the 5nm process. Why is that? Let's start with the fact that TSMC is indeed already making 3nm processors for Apple, so we'll definitely be seeing new chips from them. However, more recently, respected analyst Ming-Chi Kuo stated that the upcoming MacBook Pro and iPad Pro models will not be equipped with the processors built on 3nm. The new chips will not be available until January 2023 at the earliest. Kuo tweeted that the future 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pros will feature new chips based on TSMC's existing 5nm process. The components must be purchased no later than October, as they will go into mass production as early as the fourth quarter of 2022. The analyst says TSMC's 3nm chip production cycle is about 4 months. Thus, TSMC will begin mass production of 3nm chips in September to be ready for delivery around January. So, what do we have? The next laptop from Apple will feature the M2 Pro and M2 Max. That is, there will certainly be 14 or 16-inch MacBook Pros. Apple will indeed be the first company to make its own 3nm chips, but will it be the M2 Pro and Max chips? And why did the analyst claim that the 14 and 16-inch MacBooks will be presented this fall? Don't you find this a little strange? Just this year, Apple released the base M2 model. The line has not yet been updated and everyone is already waiting for a Pro model on the improved chip. Something doesn't add up here. This is something I said in my previous videos, but the refresh cycle for MacBooks has been about 18 months lately. That is 18 months from the date of Apple's transition from M1 to M2. And if we compare M2 and M1 on the same chip, it becomes clear that the performance difference is not that significant, but M2 consumes about 30 to 35% more energy. That is, the new product heats up and throttles more. And I know a lot of people don't like it when I talk about throttling, but it's an obvious fact. No matter how beautiful the novelty is, it's worth talking about its flaws. And based on all that, I have a feeling that the M2 doesn't look like a new generation of processors, more like an overclocked version of the M1. And if M2, the base model of this chip, was originally at 3nm, the power consumption would be lower by more or less 20%. The power would increase by another 15 to 20%, and the heating issue would probably go down as well. Here is another point I want to stress. Do you really think that Apple will present the next 14 and 16-inch MacBooks as something mind-blowing? Just keep in mind that the design, with a 99.9% probability, will not be changed. I hardly believe that Apple will say, here is the new, not-so-powerful chip, the design is literally the same, can we have your 20 to $100 for the base model now, please? Innovations need to be substantiated, and for that alone, Apple must move on to 3nm. For only the 3nm process technology will they still be able to show all these fun performance graphs and boast the impressive achievement of being the first to master the new processor technology. And I also believe that M2 Pro and Max are not getting released in the fall. Perhaps we'll be shown more M2 chip-based products, maybe a 24-inch iMac or Mac Mini, Germany, but even that won't be here as early as September. Don't forget about the October-November event. I believe if you're wanting to get a new computer this year, it's best to wait a bit longer. And only next year will we see new products for the new Pro segment. Which makes sense. Why does Apple confuse the audience and show products for the average consumer and for the Pro segment at the same event? A bit counterproductive if you ask me. Besides, it's strange that Apple presents an upgrade of their professional line. When I buy a 16-inch MacBook Pro, I don't really want to think that in a year there will be another laptop more powerful and overall better than mine, especially considering the cost of this baby. But the 4-month production cycle, the fact that production begins in September, and the unfinished line of devices with the M2 chips remind me that this year there is no point in waiting for a MacBook with M2 Pro at 5 nanometers. And if Apple dumps absolutely all MacBooks on us this year, what can we expect next year? M2 Ultra, M2 Extreme, sounds like a plan, but then the gap between the average consumer and the pro user would be far too big. And now you might feel like the wait is too long, that is at least until January. But it's really not that bad. Apple is preparing the release of new iPads, including those with 3nm chips, and I personally know many people who at one time moved from stationary computers or laptops to iPads, and not even necessarily with the Pro prefix. And they live a happy life. And as for the new iPads, there is also stuff to speculate about. Firstly, based on leaks and educated guesses, some believe that the new iPads will be presented on September 7th. Personally, I doubt that it will be an iPad Pro with M2 because again, this is Pro, and Apple would not want to mix their segments. At least that's what I like to believe. Secondly, Apple has thoroughly approached updating their affordable tablet options, in which we most likely will not see M2 or even M1, most likely it will be A15 Bionic. On top of that, we have a lot of leaked CAD files and renders that indicate that the base iPad will be updated in terms of design as well. The case itself will resemble other Apple gadgets. The rounded case design is no more, the screen frames decrease, but at the same time, for some reason, the home button with Touch ID remains. Apparently, according to Apple's logic, a base iPad for $300 or $400 cannot be as beautiful as an iPad Pro. The only good news is that based on rumors and the CAD files, we should expect USB Type-C to appear in the new products. There were also claims that the iPad Pro may get a 3nm chip, which sounds quite strange. Earlier, Apple introduced M1 into their tablets, so with the updates, it's worth waiting for M2. M2 in a tablet? With all the throttling and heating we've seen on MacBooks, I don't know about you, but I'm already lost. And it's clear that Apple alone knows what headlines they will make, but insiders throw out so much information that I barely have time to keep up with the rebuttals of their own leaks. So, my verdict is the following. If you already have a MacBook, even one on Intel, and you want to upgrade right now, I think it's still worth waiting for a 3nm chip. This just may be a revolution in the world of laptops and processors in general. The new chip may even make the M1 Pro and Max obsolete. Moreover, if you already have the M1 Pro on your hands and you would like to further improve the performance by upgrading the model to a larger amount of RAM or even switching to the M1 Max altogether, it makes no sense. It's time to breathe out and enjoy what you have now. 3nm processors will be significantly better in every sense. And only if you don't have an Apple laptop and you can't stand it anymore, if you want to experience all the charm of the macOS system, you can safely buy a MacBook with M1 on board. It's still in stock, it's extremely cheap compared to other laptops from Apple, and it's still up to date in terms of performance. Well, if you want to supplement your kid with a tablet, I don't see the point in buying an iPad right now. In 2 weeks, we'll already receive an updated base model, and in the future, a Pro model with M2 on board. In the meantime, go ahead and click on this video and this one, and see you in the next one.